Coming to you live from our Aerospark studios, this is the week's last edition of Primetime News. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Michael Madimba. We lead the bulletin with a bit of Namibian history. The Ondonga Traditional Authority has been reunited with two fragments of power stones that were taken by Finnish missionaries over a century ago. The handover ceremony took place on Thursday at State House and was presided over by President Dr. Hage Geingob and Finnish President Sauli Niinisto. The stones were received by the Minister of Education, Arts and Culture, Anangi Pundoka, and will soon be returned to the Ondonga Traditional Authority. Our producer Petrus Namadiko was at State House and covered the proceedings.
Our relations have really long-lasting roots. They started in the northern part of your country, in so-called Ovambo land region. The first Finnish missionaries arrived there already in 1970. During that time, Reverend Martti Rautanen and other missionaries were granted by the King of Ondonga the permission to open a missionary station. I would like to come back to our shared history and the fact that it has not always been unproblematic. I'm very happy that we have today been able to return something that belongs here to Namibia. The National Museums of Finland and Namibia have today signed an agreement on the repatriation and restitution of fragments removed in 1886 from the sacred power stone of Ondonga. So we have brought back what we once took.
Staying in the capital, the Disability Expo commenced in the capital earlier today at the Disability Resource Center in Okuriangava, Katutura. The expo is an opportunity for people living with disabilities to learn more about resources available to them in their communities. Damona Kanganjira filed this report.
So finally, after the restless months, technical and logistical preparations, the NFPDN Disability Expo is the first of its kind event that is aimed to showcasing the talent and capability of artists and entrepreneurs with disability and persons without disability can network, social and embrace the normalizations of community where all persons can live harmoniously regardless of the status such as gender, religions, political affiliations, and disability and others, as I stated earlier.
Moving on. Environment, Forestry and Tourism Minister Pohamba Shifeta has emphasized the importance of decent permanent accommodation infrastructure for staff members based in national parks. More from this insert.
We develop these infrastructures. Today we have opened different at this station, and there are 4 that we opened today. Springbok Basel, we have Ukhabum on that side, then Moabai, and also Cape Coast. And this is now infrastructure opened in one day. That means our staff here and also our visitors visiting this park, they will enjoy this hospitality. And also our staff now, they have beautiful housing development here. Unlike before, there were no houses like that. The houses that were there, just either you have a tent or they live in a not permanent house infrastructure. Now that we have a permanent infrastructure, our dedicated staff, they will be able to do more with this, and I'm happy, and I'm also happy to have these infrastructures in the desert here, in a very almost no man's land. You can't imagine having this infrastructure here in the very need of the desert. So we are happy that this infrastructure, today we can deliver our services to our visitors coming to the park. It means a lot because for the visitors, especially tourists who come here, they will now make Namibia as their destination, the first destination.
Now, the 61-year-old pensioner who allegedly committed suicide by hanging at his residence on Wednesday at Okahanja was on Thursday identified by his close relatives as Hendrik Lawrence Venter. Namibian Police Force Unit Commander for Community Affairs in the Otjiwarongo region, Inspector Maureen Beyer, earlier today said Venter was found hanging from the roof of his garage by one of his workers on Wednesday morning. The inspector noted a suicide note was found next to his body. Therefore, no foul play is suspected so far in connection with the matter. An inquest docket on Wednesday was opened at the Okahanja police station as investigations into the matter continue. Stay tuned for the business segment. Welcome to the Primetime Biz segment. The business of excavation headlines the segment. Namibia's Chamber of Mines annual review for 2022, released on Wednesday, revealed that Namibia's mining sector continued to expand in 2022, posting a growth rate of 21.6%, predominantly driven by the significant boost in diamond production. More analysis from this report.
In addition to the strong economic performance of mining, the report stated there are significant investment inflows into exploration and mine development, as well as growing interest in Namibia's critical mineral resources, which are expected to experience major shortfalls in the global market. President of Chamber of Mines of Namibia, Helifa Mbako, in a report said Namibia offers an abundance and variety of these minerals and there is a growing interest in critical mineral resources. He said while this adds more optimism for Namibia's mining outlook, it is also becoming increasingly important for the government to establish favorable terms and conditions in the mining and processing of these minerals to derive the maximum value from them and contribute to long-term growth of the country and sustainable supply chain of critical minerals. Mbako said the chamber engaged government on critical policies and legislative matters that influence growth and investment in mining, adding that a major win for the chamber in terms of legislation was the amendment of the Value-Added Tax Act, which now enables exploration companies to register for VAT unhindered and also claim input VAT refunds.
A landless People's Movement leader, Bernardo Swartboy, contends that ministers should not be allowed to wield power over state resources that are of unique nature, such as diamonds, oil, fish, amongst others. He shared the sentiments in Parliament on Thursday. Let's have a listen.
In the Ministry of Land Reform, you have at least, although corrupt as it is, a Land Reform Advisory Committee. Somewhere in the Ministry of Mines and Energy, there is a supervisory body. But in the fishing sector, what is that body that creates checks and balances? Specifically, Honorable Speaker, and you'll agree with me, after such a serious crime of corruption that has global implications for Namibia's standing. What are the genuine institutional, structural and modular reforms that the minister thinks or should have thought about to ensure that this country's reputation is restored by the changes that they have made in the ministry and in the management of resources. That brings me to the very last point, that perhaps time has come that we do not allow ministers so much power in the management of state resources that are of unique nature. Your diamonds, your oil, your gas, your lithium, your fish. Because all of us, if you have read the reports, I think last week or so, B2Gold, after making $25 billion cut, closed the shop and goes. It goes. Nobody can go and find out, fellas, we can interdict you, or we have a provision of an exit clause which requires you to abide by certain basic principles. And if you don't comply with those, there will be certain prohibitions of export of money, for instance, or transfer of cash money. There is nothing.
This brings us to the end of tonight's top news segment. To find out how the weather will shape up across the country over the weekend, let's turn our attention to the weather outlook. Sport Planet. The Debmarine Namibia Premiership leads the segment. University of Namibia Football Club coach Ronnie Kanalelo says despite losing 2 games in a row over a space of a week, his team is not going to press the panic button. The Clever Boys, as the team is affectionately known by its supporters, lost its rounds 25 and 26 fixtures in the 2022-23 Debmarine Namibia Premiership to Citizens and Tigers respectively. UNAM find themselves 5th on the log standing, having amassed 40 points. Kanalelo told Sport Planet earlier today that in their previous campaigns, they had 44 points, which they aim to surpass this season. The former Brave Warriors shotstopper said, "There are still 4 games remaining in the league, and we're targeting a spot in the top 5. We want to get further than the 44 points we had in the Premier League last season." On to some cycling. Over 100 cyclists are expected to contest for top honours in the senior and junior categories of the 2023 cross-country race to be held in Windhoek on Saturday. The second round of the 5-race cross-country series will see cyclists scoring International Cycling Union points. Close to 24 South African cyclists and 1 Australian are set to compete in the event, where categories that will offer cyclists UCI points include elite men and women, under 23 men and women, as well as junior men and women. There are 583 UCI points for finishers in positions 1 to 25. Stand by for a sports roundup. On that note, we've come to the end of tonight's bulletin. Thanks for being with us during the course of the week. Do make a date with us again on Tuesday next week. As we celebrate International Workers' Day on the 1st of May on Monday next week, we'll take this opportunity to salute the labour movement across Namibia and indeed the globe, for the working force is the engine that drives economies. From myself, Michael Madimba, and the entire crew behind the scenes, wishing you a restful weekend.